Hello. Howdy, whoever's on there. This is not the most exciting thing in the world, I'll tell you. But I just thought, I'm doing Mercury retrograde for the 2026 forecast book for Ray Merriman. And it's a good chapter. It's a good section. At the end, this is all the ending stuff. See, the thing has been coming in. It comes in parts. It always is that for these forecast books. So I got the ending part here not too long ago, and so I'm just sticking these in here. So we just talked about the dates for 2026. February 26th to March 20th. That's the first one, because we have one in December of 2025. So there's your about 80-something days. Chai tea, baby. That chai tea recipe keeps me going. All right, let me see here. If you guys comment, I can see it now. Hello, hello. Doing a little narrating for the forecast book. All right, Mercury. So let's see, February 26th to November 13th. No, sorry. February 26th to March 20th. That's the first one in 2026. And that's going to be right there at the time of that conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. Then one in the summer, June 29th to July 23rd, summer up north. And then October 24th to November 13th. Oh, that's nice. My birthday will be under a Mercury retrograde. Nice. Good. All right. Let's see here. Oh, hang on. We don't want to do that. I got to focus. Sorry, guys. I just thought if anybody wanted to watch, y'all welcome. You got really nothing to do. But why not? Listen to some astrology for free. Good, right? 13th, 2026. All right, I do not need that anymore, but I just want it down there. I don't want it gone. So we'll get rid of that. Okay. All right, 13th, 2026. During 2025, Mercury retrograde occurred in the fire signs of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. This created an atmosphere of exuberance, impulsiveness, and overconfidence that was mirrored in world affairs and in the financial markets. Overconfidence that was mirrored in world affairs and in the financial markets. I'll bet I didn't hit impulsiveness and overconfidence that was mirrored in world affairs and in the financial markets. That's called punch roll editing. That was mirrored. Literally just get right in there because it backs up and then you roll across that point right there and it makes the edit. So that's where I cut back in. It takes a while to learn how to do it, but once you do, I do everything that way. And in the financial markets. Fire retrogrades are quick to spark bold proclamations and rash decisions, often with outsized consequences. I also don't read anything. Rash decisions, often with outsized consequences. So whenever I mess up, I just go back and fix it. So I'm calling this, I put my labels, kind of everything is sequential, so chapter 1, chapter 2, etc. But this end stuff just kind of goes down there, so I just stick it with these double X's, and when I get a direction on where we're going, and I need to make it and we put between a half second and a full second in front. So I've got 0.784, so that's a good, trim a little bit of that off. Okay. Often with outsized consequences. Consequences. A striking example consequences. A striking example came in April 2025 when President Trump's sudden declaration of Liberation Day. When President Trump's sudden declaration of okay, I want to do that whole thing with more decisions, often with outsized consequences. Striking. Made with the tempering of detail or diplomacy sent shockwaves through the global exchanges and highlighted how Mercury retrograde in fire can encourage impulsive statements with dramatic market repercussions. Long sentence. Okay, got to get some breaths in there. Consequences. Okay. Get a good full set of lungs full of air here. Consequences. A striking example came in April 2025 when President Trump's sudden declaration of Liberation Day rattled markets around the world. That announcement, made without the tempering of detail or diplomacy, sent shockwaves through global exchanges and highlighted how Mercury retrograde in fire can encourage impulsive statements with dramatic market repercussions. Ran out of breath. Repercussions. Impulsive statements with dramatic market repercussions. Encourage impulsive statements with dramatic market repercussions. On June 13th, we also witnessed Israel's surprise attack on Iran, commencing the 12-day war between the two nations. Mercury was not retrograde at that time, but it occurred in the year when the trickster was retrograde in fire signs, thus highlighting the fiery nature of decisions in 2025. Mercury was not retrograde at that time, but it occurred in the year when the trickster was retrograde in two nations. Mercury was not retrograde at that time, but it occurred in the year when the trickster was retrograde in fire signs, thus highlighting the fiery nature of decisions in 2025. In 2026, the retrogrades move into the water signs of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, bringing an entirely different tone. Water retrogrades emphasize emotions, empathy, and sensitivity. Bringing an entirely Scorpio and Pisces, bringing an entirely different tone. Water retrogrades emphasize emotion, empathy, and sensitivity. Water Water retrogrades. Water retrogrades emphasize emotion, empathy, and sensitivity. Sensitivity. Gosh, sometimes I just lose my place. I can't find it. There it is. Sometimes you just lose your place. Wow. Sensitivity. Sensitivity. Shifting the focus away from impulsive confidence toward a more reactive and subjective climate. The world is already deeply embroiled in the world is subjective climate. The world is already deeply embroiled in conflict on multiple fronts, and the prevalence of social media ensures that images of suffering and human cost reach global audiences instantly and relentlessly. Against this backdrop, Mercury retrograde and water signs will encourage leaders, institutions, and populations to view global events through an emotional lens, often appealing to sympathy, compassion, and even guilt. A more melancholic undertone is therefore likely to accompany these periods. An emotional lens, often appealing to sympathy, compassion, and even guilt. A more melancholic undertone is therefore Therefore, a more melancholic tone is likely to accompany these periods. With retrogrades in water signs, all communication also comes under the influence of the rulers of these signs, the Moon, Neptune, and Pluto. The Moon will shape discourse with sentimentality and national pride, stirring populations with messages that evoke nostalgia, a sense of belonging, and a longing for security. Neptune brings ambiguity, fog, naivete. That's an interesting one right there. Neptune brings ambiguity, fog. I always look it up. Naivete is one way to say that word.
Naivete.
See, that puts an naivete. Come on, dictionary.
Naivete.
See, there it is. Naivete. And then there's the naivete. Naivete. What do y'all think?
Naivete.
Anybody with me? No, they're gone. We bailed. Naivete or naivete? I'm going to go with naivete. Always go with Merriam-Webster. Purity. Neptune brings ambiguity, fog. Naivete. And I'm having eye trouble. Naivete and the risk of outright deception. Neptune brings ambiguity, fog, naivete, and the risk of outright deception. Naivete and the risk of outright deception. Communications under its influence may be poetic or idealistic, but often lack clarity or concrete detail, leaving room for confusion and misinterpretation. Pluto adds intensity, secrecy, and power struggles. Under its shadow, words may carry hidden agendas, veiled threats, or attempts at manipulation. What, from Pluto? No. Veiled threats or attempts at veiled threats or veiled threats or attempts at manipulation. Manipulation. Taken together, this suggests that communications from world leaders during 2026 may be emotionally charged, deliberately ambiguous, and in some cases deceptive or obscuring of truth. The shift will be most visible in negotiations and geopolitics. In place of fiery, declarative rhetoric, geopolitics. In place of fiery, declarative geopolitics. In place of fiery, declarative geopolitics. In place of fiery, declarative rhetoric, discussions are more likely to be framed as pleas for understanding, emotional appeals, and heightened sensitivities. In place of fiery, declarative rhetoric, discussions are more likely to be framed as pleas for understanding, emotional appeals, and heightened sensitivities. Ooh. Checking the market. Futures are open now. Wow, Bitcoin's up. I'm just checking the market here, taking a little quick break. Then we'll get back to narrating. Let's see. This one will work. Let's look at just checking to see how it's going to behave, because okay. And yeah. Gold's down 13. Back up to Bitcoin. Up 1,200. All right, so it's going to push back up there. Double toppy looky. I'm in some gold, so not futures though. Have to wait until 8 o'clock if I want to try to do something about that. Okay. Well, it's going to be soft, I can tell that, but I can't do anything about it for 2 hours, so we'll just have to keep narrating. Heightened sensitivities. Sensitivities. This introduces fragility into diplomacy. Talks may stall or unravel, not because of the substance of the proposals, but because of the perceived slights, mistrust, or emotional overreactions. Slights, mistrust, or emotional Mistrust or emotional overreactions. Overreactions. Nations directly involved in warfare or humanitarian crises will find their narratives amplified, with sympathetic responses flowing more quickly, but also with polarization increasing when emotions cloud rational compromise. Leaders who thrive on emotional rhetoric may gain traction in this climate, but they also risk backlash if sentiment is not supported by practical solutions. Financial markets will not be immune to these shifts. In 2025, exuberance and speculative coincidence, buoyed by Mercury's retrogrades in the fire signs, pushed many indices to grades in the fire signs, buoyed by Mercury's retrogrades in fire signs, pushed many indices to fresh all-time highs. Buoyed by Mercury's retrogrades in fire signs, pushed many indices to fresh all-time highs. Time highs. In 2026, however, the mood is likely to be more melancholic, with sentiment overtaking logic. In 2026, however, the mood is likely to be more melancholic, with sentiment overtaking logic. However, the mood is likely to be more melancholic, with sentiment overtaking. More melancholic, with sentiment overtaking logic. Taking logic. With sentiment overtaking logic. Taking logic. Investors and traders may find themselves swayed less by data and fundamentals and more by images and narratives circulating in real time. Emotional overreactions will become more common, creating sharp swings in prices and fragile confidence. Reactions will become more common, creating sharp swings in prices and fragile confidence. This is a dangerous environment for markets, since volatility will not necessarily be rooted in measurable risk, but rather in the shifting tides of collective sentiment. This is a dangerous environment for markets, since volatility This is a dangerous environment for markets. 2026, gonna be fun. Environment for market. Gonna be fun. And fragile confidence. This is a dangerous environment for markets, since volatility will not necessarily be rooted. Oh, nope, there's more. Oh, got me. The Kindle. Looked like we were done. Of collective sentiment. The transition from fire to water in Mercury retrograde marks a shift from impulsive bravado to emotional vulnerability. To emotional vulnerability, where 2025 rewarded boldness and risk-taking. Vulnerability, where 2025 I've had a hard day today anyway. Vulnerability. Where 2025 rewarded boldness and risk-taking, 2026 is more likely to punish those who ignore the emotional weight of words and images. In this climate, calls for empathy, charity, and sacrifice will grow louder, yet the potential for overreaction, mistrust, and deception will also intensify. In this climate, calls for... See that little thing right there? That's a little pop. Climate. Sometimes it can be, on this system, it can just be a mic pop or a mouth pop or something. You get all those out of there. In this climate, calls for... I have some software that does it. In this climate, calls for empathy, but it wouldn't have gotten that one. Deception will also intensify. Mercury retrograde in water signs does not resolve conflict, but it does reframe how the world experiences and reacts to it. Leaders and markets alike will be tested on their ability to navigate this heightened sensitivity without losing sight of clarity, rational judgment, and truth. Writers and speakers will find their words steeped in emotion, memory, and subjectivity. Language will be colored by Neptune's ambiguity and poetic allure. Emotion, memory, and subjectivity. Language, subjectivity. Language will be colored by Neptune's subjectivity. Language will be colored by Neptune's ambiguity and poetic allure, the moon's sentiment and national pride. Oh, wait a minute. Language will be colored by Neptune's ambiguity and poetic allure, the moon's sentiment and national pride. Oh, okay. Subjectivity. Language will be colored by Neptune's ambiguity and poetic allure, the moon's sentiment and national pride, and Pluto's intensity and undercuts of secrecy or transformation. This atmosphere favors storytelling that is nostalgic, compassionate, and deeply reflective, and it may draw individuals back to old or forgotten projects that now beckon to be completed or reimagined. Pluto's in... See, there's one right there. Will it get it? Yep. This atmosphere favors storytelling that is nostalgic, compassionate, and deeply reflective. This atmosphere favors storytelling that is nostalgic. I'm going to do that again. This is a good line. Transformation. Secrecy. Transformation. This atmosphere favors storytelling that is nostalgic, compassionate, and deeply reflective, and it may draw individuals back to old or forgotten projects that now beckon to be completed or reimagined. It also opens the door to more artistic and imaginative expressions, with creativity flowing in symbolic, intuitive, and often dreamlike forms. At the same time, there is a heightened risk of ambiguity, manipulation, and emotional excess that is likely to further polarize humanity through social media platforms. Risk of ambiguity, manipulation, and emotional excess that is likely to further polarize humanity through social media platforms. Audiences will respond more viscerally, making words feel heavier and more consequential. The best communicators will be those who authentically channel this emotional tide, giving voice to vulnerability and unspoken truths without losing clarity or integrity. In financial markets, Mercury retrograde is known as the trickster because during this cycle, support and resistance levels are often broken, only to reverse right back again. These are fake-out periods marked by more than usual fake-out periods marked by more than the fake-out periods marked by the more marked my okay, what do you got here? These are fake-out periods marked by more than the usual. Okay. Marked by more than the usual number of false fake-out periods marked by more than the usual number of buy and sell fake-out periods marked by the more than marked by that just sounds only to reverse right back again. Right back again. These are fake-out periods marked by more than the usual number of false buy and sell signals. There it was. That's the ticket. Signals. This coincides with contradictory political and economic data and announcements that can lead to sudden whipsaws in financial markets. For this reason, our motto under Mercury retrograde is to take profits sooner rather than later. If not, your profits could suddenly vanish before reaching your price or time target. Pop my knuckle. Time target. A quick, modest profit is better than a loss during these Whoa, I'm in purgatory over here. Time target. A quick, modest profit is better than a loss during these periods. Mercury retrograde can still favor aggressive short-term trading over periods. Mercury retrograde can still favor aggressive short-term trading over intervals of aggressive short-term trading these periods. Mercury retrograde can still favor aggressive short-term trading over intervals of perhaps 1 to 4 days. Also, any market that does not complete a market cycle within 4 days of Mercury retrograde is likely to do so within 2 days of the midpoint of the retrograde cycle, when the Sun conjoins Mercury. Retrograde cycle. That's when the Sun conjoins Mercury. Conjoins Mercury. This can be a useful leading market timing indicator. This can be a joins Mercury. This can be a joins Mercury. This can be a useful leading market timing indicator. Timing indicator. Mercury retrograde periods are notorious for bringing confusion, delays, and disruptions to the flow of everyday affairs. It is wise to exercise caution when signing contracts, finalizing agreements, or making binding commitments. Contracts, finalizing agreements, or making binding commitments. Commitments, as details are more easily overlooked and people may change their minds. In business, one often sees a spike in missed appointments, schedule changes, and outright cancellations. Technology and communication systems are also vulnerable. Phones, computers, and networks seem to go on the blink more often. And misunderstandings in emails or phone calls become more often. Blink more often. Think more often. Phones, technology, cancellations. Technology and communications systems are also vulnerable. Phones, computers, and networks seem to go on the blink more often, and misunderstandings in emails or phone calls become more common. More often, and misunderstandings in emails or more often, and misunderstandings in emails become more common. The general advice is to be precise in communication, double-check instructions, and repeat back critical details to confirm mutual understanding. Avoid debates or confrontations surrounding sensitive topics during this period. In 2026, individuals born under water signs or those with Mercury retrograde in water signs or those with Mercury retrograde in water signs should be especially mindful, as they may be more receptive to these retrograde periods, particularly when Mercury retrograde passes through their sun sign. Yes, Mercury retrograde is not purely negative. These cycles offer rare opportunities for review, reflection, and recalibration. They are excellent times to go back over old work, revise and edit writing, return to unfinished projects, or revisit past conversations and negotiations with a fresh perspective. I find this to be a great time for research. Lost or forgotten information often resurfaces, and old contacts may reappear, allowing for closure, reconciliation, or renewed collaboration. Reconciliation or renewed collaboration. Collaboration. For creative people, retrogrades can bring bursts of insight by forcing the mind to approach problems from new angles. In some cases, delays and cancellations create the space to pause, reflect, and avoid mistakes that might otherwise result from rushing forward. Used consciously, Mercury retrograde is a time to slow down, reflect, and realign. It is less suited for launching new ventures or charging ahead more supportive of time. It is less suited for launching new ventures or charging ahead, and is more supportive of tying up loose ends, correcting errors, supportive of tying up loose ends, correcting errors, or unearthing hidden insights. By respecting its rhythm, people can transform what is often seen as a disruptive period into one that strengthens clarity, creativity, and preparedness for the forward motion that follows. Creativity and preparedness for the motion and preparedness, clarity, creativity, and preparedness for the forward motion, that follows. Into one that strengthens clarity, creativity, and preparedness for the forward motion that follows. Well, there's a section. How long was that? 11 minutes. I am doing the I think they end up being the last 2 chapters of the forecast books, and these are the retrograde periods. So I'm about to do Venus. Venus retrograde period in 2026. Audiobook narrating is tedious. It is. 2026. When we start a new chapter, I always leave, this is ACX, this is Audible standards, and doing this book according to that, even though it probably won't be on Audible, but I don't know what they're going to do with this one this year. But I'm at 0.6. Hey, that's a good number. If I could just put a wee bit more in there, I could have 666. Oh, it was too much. Okay. 2026. There will be one Venus retrograde period in effect in 2026, from October 3rd to November 13th, 2026. Venus will begin its retrograde motion at 8 degrees 29 minutes Scorpio and move back to 22 degrees 51 minutes Libra on November 13th. Sorry. Libra. 1 minutes Libra on, I was getting weak there. Let's do that again. And move back Scorpio and move back to 22 degrees 51 minutes Libra on November 13th before returning to direct motion. The dance of Venus through the signs of to direct motion. The dance of Venus through the signs of Scorpio and Libra will have the greatest impact on individuals with strong placements in these signs, as well as those with Venus retrograde in their natal charts. It's also worth noting that Venus retrogrades occur in nearly the same sign and degree every 8 years. The beautiful dance of Venus. All right, before I get too far, let's do years. 8 years. Venus, the god of love and beauty, 8 years. Venus, the goddess, 8 years. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, traditionally rules harmony, attraction, wealth, and the arts, bringing balance and drawing people and nations. Okay, we get all of that in one. Attraction, wealth, and the arts. Bringing balance and drawing people and nations into accord. In mundane astrology, she also shapes the tone of diplomacy, treaties, and alliances, while in finance she governs currencies, banking, prosperity, and the appetite for luxury. When Venus turns retrograde, however, these themes become unsettled. Alliances strain. Markets question value, currencies wobble, and societies reassess what they truly cherish. It is a time when appearances fade, trust is tested, and both nations and individuals are called to reevaluate what is worth keeping and what must be released. I can do that better. And both nations and individuals is tested. And both nations and individuals are called to reevaluate what is worth keeping and what must be released. Banking. Mundane astrology, she also shapes the tone of diplomacy, treaties, and alliances, while in finance she governs currencies, banking, prosperity, and the appetite for luxury. When Venus turns retrograde, however, these themes become unsettled. Alliances strain, markets question value, currencies wobble, and societies reassess what they truly cherish. It is a time when appearances fade, trust is tested, and both nations and individuals are called to reevaluate what is worth keeping and what must be released.